Do you know what connects family quarrels, Italian cuisine, and gunfire? The movie Riff Raff, 2025, the recap of which you're about to hear right now. Our main character, young DJ, is pointing a gun straight at a man's head. What? Has teenage rebellion gone too far? Or did his dad just say, "Enough with TikTok already"? No, this is much more serious and funnier. We have a story about a family that gets into so much trouble that the New Year's holidays turn into a crime comedy with a taste of pasta. So, buckle up, get your spaghetti ready, and let's dive into how, under one roof, we ended up with a pregnant Italian woman with the attitude of a mafia matriarch, a desperate fugitive with zero plan, an ex-wife ready to bill for all past grievances, and a bunch of people with revolvers who seem to have just accidentally walked in for dinner. It's going to be fun, or deadly, but definitely not boring.
Rocco and Marina threw a bloody party at a restaurant. Apparently the bolognese sauce turned out too red. A guy named Lonnie finds out about it and rushes over to Lefty with the news. That Italian restaurant now has more than just pasta. There's a pool of blood too. Time to update the Google Maps rating. By the way, DJ was taught to shoot by his stepfather Vincent, the very same guy he was aiming at in the beginning. But now they're having a heart-to-heart conversation. Vincent tells him how he once stole DJ's mom, Sandy, from his real father because the guy was a master of cheating and she was a champion of patience. "Don't worry, kid, about being abandoned before graduation," he says. "True love breaks through walls, or at least doors." But then Sandy arrives, sees the alcohol, and immediately calls DJ for a serious talk. Probably about how beer ruins teenage brains. Meanwhile, Rocco and Marina are speeding through the night, heading straight for Vincent's house. Rocco is Vincent's son from another woman, and when DJ notices Marina's huge belly, he goes, "Whoa, pregnant." Rocco snaps back, "Apologize, it's just Italian love for pizza." No spoiler, she's 9.5 months in, so pizza clearly has nothing to do with it. Rocco asks DJ for help, and right then Vincent shows up. The girl tries to explain who she is, but the explanations crash down along with Aunt Ruth, who managed to mix pills with alcohol and is now in a deep sleep. Vincent, of course, reluctantly accepts his son and the guests, but he realizes the consequences from his wife, Sandy, so he tells everyone to go to bed, except Rocco. The two men talk about how Rocco is going to have a son, but Vincent insists that they leave, at least to keep his family out of their dark affairs. Early morning in the woods, what could be better than DJ's refreshing jog? Probably the realization hitting Ruth that she is very far from home. At first, she doesn't even recognize DJ, but her brain finally switches on when Sandy and Rocco enter the room with Maria. The woman immediately suspects that she was drugged, but Rocco decides to take a walk with his mother through the woods to calm her down a bit and give her a cigarette, because every second spent near the woman Vincent replaced her with only adds to her stress. Ever since then, she has been completely ignored by men. Meanwhile, Maria, nervous as hell, starts cooking, forcing Sandy to reminisce about how great pregnancy was. But now, her fruits of labor sit here, lecturing her on the biochemical reactions in the human body that they call love. But when the mother mocks her son for getting dumped by Brittany, he snaps, angrily revealing that his biological father cheated on her right before his death. At the peak of the argument, Vincent enters, and Sandy immediately calls the men in for a talk. She is furious that her husband dared to tell their underage son about her past relationships. She refuses to accept his apology and warns him that a serious conversation is coming. But for now, they have guests to attend to. Sandy, Rocco, and DJ head out shopping. Meanwhile, Lefty and Lonnie, the guys you heard about at the beginning of the film, are heading to Yarmouth. At the store, Lefty warns Lonnie not to grab beef, complaining that the car already smells bad enough without it. But then they realize they just called each other by name. They freeze, glancing at the cashier, wondering if he caught that. The guy casually responds, calling them Lefty and Lonnie, making Lefty furious because the place is loaded with cameras, which means killing him now would be a problem. But the idiot cashier grins and says, "Relax, the cameras haven't worked in years." Without hesitation, Lefty pulls out his revolver and blows the guy's brains out. Back at the house, Vincent is left alone with Ruth. She tries to remind him of their good old days when they were happy together and she wasn't stuck dating men who dropped their pants and looked like pickles fresh out of a jar. But Vincent shuts her down, demanding a real answer. "Why did you and Rocco come here?" Last night, Lefty and that quiet weirdo Lonnie had paid her a visit. She didn't give up her son, but Lefty still left a message. "Tell Vincent I say hi." That's enough to send Vincent into a bad spiral. Meanwhile, Ruth, when anxious, gets very turned on, and this situation is no exception. but Vincent reminds her he's married. Meanwhile, DJ is picking out fireworks for New Year's, and Marina decides to ask how his love life is going. His answer does not please her. She tells him to stop acting like a nerd and start acting like a man. DJ knows he's not as cool as his brother, but Marina opens up about how she fell for Rocco. One night, they went for a walk and found a tiny turtle. A month later, after they first slept together, she stayed over and found that same turtle. Rocco had been taking care of it all that time. That's when she realized he was the one.
But as they leave the store, they find Rocco already losing his temper.
Marina apologizes to Sandy and DJ. She needs to go home and get some sleep.
But DJ suddenly invites himself to go with them, leaving his mother alone.
On the road, Rocco is clearly panicking. Someone had called his friend, saying that a stranger was already out looking for them. But since Rocco himself barely knows where they are, he reassures himself that the man won't find them either. But when Rocco yells at DJ to stay out of his business, Marina steps in, telling everyone to calm the hell down. When they arrive at the house, DJ storms out of the car, still upset. Rocco hands his beloved revolver, telling her to be very careful before grabbing a beer and heading after DJ to apologize. To smooth things over, Rocco decides to tell the real story of how he met Maria. One night, he walked into the worst bar in town. He didn't exactly notice a beautiful girl, more like a pair of breasts that immediately drove him insane. Without much thought, he took her home. She wrecked half his apartment, grabbed an axe, and for a second he thought he was done for. Instead, she threw herself at him with kisses, only to trip and fall down the stairs, breaking her nose. And then, she blamed him for it. Panicked, he rushed her to the hospital, but at the registration desk, 3 cops.
Rocco bolted. They caught him. But just as things looked bleak, she appeared, Maria.
He had seen her before at a party, but back then she was with another guy, Johnny, Lefty's son. Unfortunately for Johnny, he had already moved on to someone else. So the love of Rocco's life picked the handcuffs lock in 5 seconds flat and set him free. DJ, moved by their chaotic romance, soaks it all in, but then his father appears, telling them to fire up the grill while he and Rocco have a little talk.
As soon as Lefty's name comes up, a drunken Ruth stumbles in. Then Sandy arrives, and Ruth, without thinking, blurts out that she hates her. Sandy hears it loud and clear, but the real conversation starts now.
Vincent explains that Lefty already knows about his second home just 2 hours from here, which means finding this house? Not a problem. Rocco, realizing there's no more running, finally confesses everything.
After falling for Maria, he wanted Johnny's blessing.
Johnny laughed. Said he had been with 5 girls that week alone. Sure, Maria was top tier, but love? Not his thing. If Rocco wanted her, she was his.
Fast forward to last night. Rocco and Maria were having a peaceful dinner at an Italian restaurant when Johnny showed up. Rocco, immediately uneasy, decided to hold it in and just walk to the bathroom. Johnny insisted. And the moment he stepped away, screams. Johnny had jumped Maria.
By the time Rocco rushed back, Johnny had a gun, forcing him to drop his own weapon and choose head or stomach. But in a fit of rage, Rocco grabbed a metal stand and caved in Johnny's skull. And once Lefty left Ruth's apartment last night, they drugged her and brought her here, meaning Ruth was right all along. But Vincent pulls a wild move. He tells Rocco to grab $100,000 from his stash and disappear, because at the end of the day, he's still his son. They'll do it tomorrow when the bank opens. But for now, it's New Year's Eve. And Vincent insists that no matter how crazy things get, a family should still find something to celebrate. Meanwhile, very close to their house, Lefty has already arrived. He and his crew step inside only to find the place empty. This is just one of Vincent's properties. Suddenly, the neighbors appear. Lefty stops his men from killing them, instead welcoming them as guests. The neighbors, thinking Lefty and his crew are just family friends of Vincent, decide to help them out. They even pull out a detailed topographical map of the area, a map created by DJ. Smart kid, one of the neighbors chuckles, but he sure doesn't know how to throw a damn stick. When they barely get rid of the annoying neighbors, Lefty asks his men to go inside and take care of them. But there's one problem. He dropped his gun. Luckily, The neighbors help him out and return the weapon, so Lefty asks him to show the guy the bathroom, where he finishes them off. Meanwhile, Sandy finally forgives her husband and decides to make love. When DJ hears this, he prefers to take a walk. Unfortunately, he accidentally peeks through the window and sees Maria and Rocco together. For that, he immediately gets punched in the face. When he wakes up, the whole family is gathered. Lefty thanks him for the map he made. Without the markers showing where to turn at the furry hazelnut, they would have taken a whole week to get there. Everyone is seated except for Rocco, who they actually came for. But here he is. He doesn't play the hero, just tosses his gun and sits down on the couch. At that moment, after drinking too much, Ruth finally wakes up and realizes she's as good as dead. But Lonnie tells her not to rush and even thanks her for yesterday's pasta. Then Lefty brings up a painful subject. He may be old, but he needs to be more selective about where he spends his energy. However, for his son's death, someone has to die too. Vincent tries to reason with him, saying Johnny would have met a bad end anyway. Lefty understands it was his own fault. That day, during a conversation with his son, Johnny admitted he wanted to have a child with Maria, but they couldn't because Johnny turned out to be sterile. Lefty kicked him out, and it was the worst conversation with his son in his entire life, and also the last one. So Lefty decides to take them outside one by one and finish it there. First, he looks at Rocco. Then he gives Vincent a choice. Trying to avoid future suffering, Vincent chooses himself. Of course, Lefty refuses, so Vincent picks Ruth instead. She has a chance to escape, but Lonnie advises her not to even try. Desperate, she agrees, and that's how her life ends. When Lonnie returns to the house, he asks for Rocco. He wants to torture him. They used to be friends. Rocco always supported him. But a year ago, when Lonnie was in depression, someone sprinkled pubic hair into his soup. He confided in Rocco about it, but Rocco just blabbed it to everyone, making Lonnie feel even worse. Lefty allows it. But before going outside, Rocco says goodbye to Maria. She quickly slips a gun into his pants. Outside, the unexpected happens. Ruth is still alive. She stabs Lonnie in the leg, giving Rocco just enough time to fire several shots.
But he collapses to the ground dead as well.
In the house, we finally learn how Vincent managed to afford such a place. He and Lefty used to work for big bosses, killing people. But at one point, Vincent handed Lefty a huge bag of money to wash his hands of it all and get out of the business. However, sometime later, Vincent himself called Lefty and asked him to take care of a guy. Vincent now tells him to shut up, but Lefty keeps talking. It turns out they killed a black guy, staged it as an accident, and spent the entire night hiding in a gas station restroom. And damn Lefty, if that guy wasn't the spitting image of DJ, which means Vincent killed DJ's ex. But according to Vincent, that night, he saw a stranger walking away from the guy and only wanted to scare him, but accidentally ended up killing him, so he had no choice. DJ completely loses it. Lefty offers him a deal. He'll kill Vincent right now, and DJ's mother can walk free. DJ actually takes the gun and is about to shoot, but he aims at Lefty instead. After that, Vincent finishes the job himself. But then Rocco appears, followed by Lonnie. Vincent immediately takes Lonnie out. Then Sandy grabs the gun. She realizes that her ex was the one who truly loved her. But then a gunshot to the back. Ruth isn't about to forgive him for pulling something like that. In the end, though, he survives, just spends a couple of weeks recovering. By then, Marina has already given birth, and baby Rocco Jr. is now in his arms, a happy, though a little battered family.